Hello, everybody. My name is Tommy Lee, VP of Sales for North America. I want to welcome all the ladies and gentlemen to share your time with me today. Today will be sort of a brief overview of really what I consider a product to be one of the last pieces of the puzzle in assembling this entire SIP solution in many, many different businesses out there. Most of the people that I'm aware of like to go out and deploy phones, soft phones, headsets, all takes care of the one-to-one, person-to-person conversations. But in many organizations that deploy these type of solutions, you always have these peripheral units on the sides, and the PA2, which we're going to present, and I'm going to present today, which is really called our public announcement version 2, adapter that really does close the gap in providing really the full voice communication solution throughout the business community. But before I get started on that, let me just do some house cleaning. For the audience who have just recently signed on, there is a handout section on your client. So by all means, if you want a soft copy of this presentation, feel free to go to the handouts section and download it as you see fit. So there's no need to, jot down notes or anything like that. You can just download it onto your system and we can take it from there. In terms of questions, everybody will be muted for the most part of this webinar. And what I do suggest is that you could post any questions you want to during the presentation as questions arise. And what I will do is devote some time at the end of this presentation to sort of address a lot of the questions related to the PA2. So with that said, I will proceed and kind of talk about the PA2. And again, this is really a brief overview of a product we've been selling for a while, but it has really caught on a lot of steam, and I'll tell you the reason why. Okay, for many of those in the audience who have never heard of Fanvil before, I just always like to start off showing the entire spectrum of solutions. Of course, we provide a whole host of commercial IP phone products, and all of these units, by the way, are all SIP compliant. And what we mean by that is it really does apply to the SIP standard, which really most of all of the major businesses have upgraded to from the legacy digital as well as analog systems today. Some of the SIP endpoints that we provide are the commercial phones here, which come in a big wide variety of colors, screens, and shapes and form that fit anywhere from the low-end entry unit to the high-end executive type demand, as well as even sort of the front desk multi-button requirement delays. In addition to that, we also have a specific line targeted for the hospitality unit. We have 3 lines in the hospitality unit, which really starts off at a display unit that really provides an easy way for the hospitality to home in and be able to put in their specific logos and keys on a soft screen, so you can buy one phone and not have to deal with commercial templates. For those who are used to dealing with commercial templates, we have those as well in our H3. It comes in 2 separate colors. And obviously we have what we call a slimline phone in both black and white. And we recently made an enhancement, which also now includes speakerphone and everything else. But one of the things I like to also illustrate is that we also have a whole host of what we call SIP security products. And what this is, it's really door access and intercom units, ranging everywhere from indoor commercial units all the way through ruggedized outdoor rain-protected units that are used on the outside. And tying all of these solutions together, we have a piece called FDMS, which also stands for Fanvil Device Management System. And what this does, it really ties in all of these systems together so that you can easily do a factory reboot. You can, deploy specific templates in all of these devices, and that it really ties them all in together. So for many of our partners who also deploy our phones and some of the intercoms, this becomes a handy tool that sort of ties in both of the different endpoints together. But for the focus of this specific webinar, I want to look at these pieces here. The units that we actually highlighted with these red circles here is really the PA2. And as I mentioned earlier, 90% of all the applications that I hear being in the telecom workforce for a long time, you hear a lot of phone deployments of desktop phones, soft phones, headsets, and etc. But there are lots of other units, like such as public announcement systems, which used to be managed by the legacy digital system that hooked into an existing amplifier and speakers on a system that already works. Remote intercom systems that were tied via an analog line, and you may need to custom retrofit those lines. But there was really no easy way to do that, and this is what the PA2, which I consider the last piece of the SIP puzzle, that you can really provide a full 100% SIP solution to the marketplace out there. So without further ado, let me go ahead and just outline the agenda that I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to go ahead and really provide a close-in product of what this one adapter does, and provide some wide spectrum of applications which it can do, and also at the end give you a 1, 2, 3 tip, because one of the differences if you're new to the PA market, all of the phones, the soft phones, typically had a display of which you could easily access the IP address of the phone so that you can easily configure it. Well, now with the PA2, you're going, what in the world is this device here that doesn't have a display? It doesn't even have a keyboard. Well, with these tips, I'm going to go ahead and get you from out of the box and onto the network within the shortest amount of time possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this talks about that peripheral project. It could be even an elevators that go up and down that had voice communication. You could push a button. How do you go ahead and upgrade those type of things? They're in existence in very large buildings, but this again is one of those peripheral things that have to do with voice communication. But what do you do outside of the office desktop? So let's get started. Problem one. I like to be a problem solver and just really identifying the issues that this PA2 addresses. Let's talk about a public announcement system. When you have a PA system that's in a hotel or in an office building, in a hospital, or even an education facility, they were tied in with the old analog lines. Now, chances are that line was put in probably well over a decade ago, and you have an amplifier and the speakers that basically stood still and has been working for many, many, many years. The good news is that the functionality of those systems probably will work for another 10 plus years, and there's really two options to go when you upgrade from an analog system up to a SIP grade system. One is to really just replace the speakers and cables themselves. I mean, you can just retrofit the entire speaker system and go from an analog speaker into an IP speaker and recable all the things into an Ethernet system. Or option two is that you retrofit the existing speakers that hang from the ceilings, that are driven by the amp, that's working just as fine. But what you want to do is attach an adapter right in front of the amplifier that really makes that working system adaptable to your new SIP system. And I'll talk a little bit about that moving forward. And you will find that option two really provides you with a far lower cost option in being able to upgrade that, at least for a PA system. Number two is on hosted PBX deployment, which is really where the momentum is today in a lot of businesses. How do you really deploy a multicast system in a small business office? Or if you're in an actual branch office A and you want to offer an announcement system in branch office B that's in a remote location, how do you go ahead and dial something in so that you can announce something that's announced to either a school, to a different office building? Well, the PA2 can also serve as a powered multicast hub that allows you to really contact and call in based on an extension or on a phone call, and then be able to announce to that building and have any peripheral that's listening into that multicast system really respond to that either through an announcement via a loudspeaker system, a telephone, a strobe light, or what have you. So these are the different types of solutions that the PA2 system solves. Item number three. Very often we think about deploying in business centers. And in business centers, it's typically a quiet environment, especially in hospitals or even an education environment. But let's go in the opposite extreme, where you're actually deploying SIP systems within a factory where the noise level is very, very high. In that type of environment, you may have a lot of phones, but nobody can hear them because all the phone ringers are really set for typical audio tones that are in an office or in a really a low noise school environment. But in the case where you have something like this, you can really use this as a peripheral to really adapt and make a loud ringer system. This is 3 of perhaps dozens of different applications, which I'll get into more. But what this does is it just really allows to make any form of audio communication device operate with the new SIP PBX that you just put in place. And this SIP PBX, as I'll show, is a wide spectrum of things. When you look at a phone, you have to worry about BLF keys, you have to worry about a lot of different functions and on group calling. This is one very specific device that allows you to really put SIP to wherever location that you want to and make it work. And that's what we really call this. I like to call it sort of a Swiss Army knife. You know, the PA2 is really a device that you can go out there and pull out any particular tool to adapt to your specific needs. So now, having said some of the problems, let's just stay on the surface and look at the primary specifications of what a PA2 adapter does. This is really look at the front end of the device as well as the back end of the device. And when you look at the actual specifications of it supporting 2 SIP lines, being able to support a 30-watt power amplifier that this can go ahead and drive either a non-powered or even perhaps drive a powered amplifier, you know, furnished by a third party. It could come from Viking, Bogan, what have you, that's really nested in the ceiling. It's been working all along, and you can use this to operate with that and work along a subsystem. But when you look at a lot of the other things, the PoE, the RJ45 ports, the DSS keys, this looks and smells just like an IP phone. And in fact, this is what it really is. But instead of routing the phone calls into the handset or making the DSS keys, what we've done is given our partners a core solution so that you could bring SIP and route the calls and make, you know, click on relays to open doors or to even accept cameras in a telephone system the way you want to. And how do you take advantage of that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you in the next couple of slides. Coupling with the PA2 is what we have is a PA2 kit. Now, as I stated before, one of the great abilities of this PA2 SIP adapter is being able to adapt it to different environments. And what we found we had to put together is a kit, which typically has a camera that you can install through the Ethernet interface, an actual button, a microphone, or a speaker. Now, you don't have to implement and buy this kit, but it's an accessory in case you have to put together what we call a customized SIP solution. And what is a customized SIP solution? Take, for example, an elevator within an office building. You can go up and down, and some people provide the ability to talk to the front desk or the control center within each elevator. But how do you do that when you upgrade the system from analog to SIP? You can go ahead and hide this PA2, which is really about the size, a little bit larger than a deck of poker cards. And you can hide that in the back and be able to have this ride up and down the system and be able to communicate and use it with your new upgraded SIP system. But how do you adapt with the button? Here's a button that you can use that you can push for people that are in the elevator to enable it to call a specific speed dial and have a SIP communication between the 2 points. That's just one example. Now, of course, due to the popularity of out-of-the-box videos, I thought I would just take a quick snapshot on how this PA2 differentiates itself from a lot of the competitive environments that are in the marketplace. Here's the PA2 on the left-hand side here, which you'll see this adapter. And the great way you can really differentiate is when I show you the front-end adapter here, when I look back at the 2 slides, here you go, how in the world do I connect the wires to all of this front end? And the great news about it is that included in the box are these connectors here, along with a mini screwdriver that you can connect into all of these different connectors and be able to provide really a slip-in wire. So you could just pop in the wire, take the screwdriver, close it up, and be able to have a very, very firm connection onto this. This is a very unique and convenient feature that's included in all of our PA1 devices, along with a quick start guide, as well as a wall template in case you have to mount this to a wall. Looking at the size, again, it's pretty small, which really works to its advantage, but it's also housed in a very sturdy metal case. This is the camera, as well as a speaker and microphones and buttons that can auxiliate this specific adapter to really work in what we call customized devices. And all of the list of the things that are included on the side here, and it also has all the accessory screws as well, including some of the detailed outlines that provide you here on what you need to do to implement these devices. Now let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into some of the interfaces that take the PA2 outside of it. Now I said it has 2 SIP accounts. So what you can do is you can assign an extension, let's call it extension 100, and you can dial 100 and power this via 2 separate speaker and headset outputs right here. You can power a passive speaker or an amplified speaker, so that this you can use to power an amplifier, or you can use this to a passive speaker that can power up to 30 watts. That's really a higher specification. There's several different ways that you can really power this device. Through a PoE connection, through over the Ethernet, which is the very easy way, or alternative to the PoE, you can actually connect it through a power, which is a PoE cable here, and you can put it to a cable. But if you don't have that, you can also provide power on this input here between 12 and 24 volts, 2 amps, right here, which would up anywhere between lower 30 watts or higher than the 30 watts here. Now, obviously, when you power this through PoE, the maximum passive speaker output will only be 10 watts because you can't pull power out more than what the actual power watt is for. So this gives you a full flexibility. On the other side, we also have a logic output, which really gives you the ability to attach an alarm light or perhaps attach an IR sensor. This could be an entry device that you can actually pass through and see whether or not you want to enable a call-in based on a person sensing if they can come in or not. These are all the different ways you can adapt to it and have it work for your specific application. Now let's look at the other side of it. This is where you can attach an RJ45 connection right here, which would provide PoE. But another differentiating feature of this PA2 relative to its competitive solutions is that we actually have a reset key. Very often in legacy devices, you have a hard time when the device fails. How do you reset the device? We can go ahead and actually take a clip. You can reset this device, so when you're out in the field and you have to do a factory reset, you can provide that right then and there. And we also provide a camera port where you can actually take the camera from the actual PA2 kit or a third-party IP camera and hook it up and be able to provide a video-based intercom system or perhaps a video connection on SIP to wherever you want it to go. So how you want to put it together, that flexibility is really up to you. Now let's look a little bit on the network side of it, where I look at some of the wide applications that one can do. Okay. Now here in this case, I look at how a single cast call from an IP phone, this could be obviously a Fanvil phone, but it could be any SIP phone in the marketplace, calls a SIP ID and calls this PA2. It picks up a call. Now all of a sudden, if it's programmed, say for one of its functions, do a multicast address, you could have 2 separate addresses and 2 separate multicasts, so that for the devices that are listening on this multicast network, it could range anywhere from another PA2 that's listening in. And this one will drive a PA amplifier that can drive multiple speakers. On this one, it could be another PA2 device that's listening in on that multicast address and also drive a single passive speaker. This could be a case where you can drive a front door application or perhaps a front entryway onto an office building. Or if you want to make an office announcement, you could also have a bunch of IP phones. Any SIP IP phone that has multicast capabilities that can listen, it'll also listen in the background for anything that's broadcasted here and be able to provide that announcement over the phone, as well as providing the SIP announcement. It could drive a third-party lamp as well. So these are the different applications, and I provide lines that actually show between single cast and multicast solutions that you can provide in the marketplace. This is also very handy when you also want to drive a multicast environment from a hosted, SIP-based PBX IP solution when you want to roll it out. And this really gives you a sort of a network capability for that broadcast system. Here's another broadcast system for a factory that's open 24 hours. And when you actually open up this case, here you have 2 metal cases that's driving really a bullhorn that gives you one PA1 that accepts the PA solution that drives this other PA, which drives the power to this horn. And yet when you call this horn, it could be extension 300, for example, then you can make an announcement and make an announcement across this factory or the horn or what have you, and it gives you a really small size to really fit this in to a specific application. Now let's look at more at the customized solutions. The other piece is kind of used the standard PA2 as is without this kit. Now let's look at this kit. You know, I bring up this remote control solution, and this could be evident in shopping centers, schools, office buildings, where, or even in the hospitality environment where you have this gate that typically runs anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 per gate that regulates how much this car can go in and out. Having spent a lot of time in hospitality myself, these things often break down. The card could be, you know, unswiped and these things don't work. And what you typically do is you have a button that you press. Well, in the old system, when it was analog, now you can upgrade it to SIP to now drill in one of these buttons as well as a video camera to now make it, make this old system retrofitted for SIP so that now they can call the front desk or call the central office and be able to say, what's wrong? Oh, my car is stuck. Can you open the gate, etc., and do that function on a manual basis. Here's another similar example in a train station when someone actually took our PA2 system, actually retrofitted an analog system where now they can include a video camera as well as the buttons, and then use this as sort of a SIP device. It doesn't look like a phone that's hanging in the system, but it's sort of ruggedized inside of a weatherproof box. And that's where the PA2 sits, and that a person can sit there, and someone in the central office here can actually take a look, see the person, and be able to have a one-on-one conversation at every train station. And so this is just one of many different applications that one can do. This is just a simple, quick network diagram. And one of the things that we've shown here is that this is sort of our legacy C600 Android phone, which provides video as well as Android capability on a screen. We're actually rolling out the Fanvil X7A, which is our new Android device as we speak today. And that could be also used as a bidirectional video device, or you can show this video as sort of the input to where all these different stations call into you, okay? The great news about all of these particular devices is that it also leverages the ability of our IP phones. We devote a lot of resources being able to be fully compatible with a lot of the different PBXs that are out there. And the great news is that you can be rest assured that the PA2 will also be fully compatible, you know, and it's also recommended by many of the different PBXs that are out there to serve this type of application moving forward. So now the last but not least is the PA2 tips. I mentioned earlier on in the application where all of a sudden, you know, this device doesn't have a display, it doesn't have a keyboard, it doesn't even have a phone where you can listen to. How in the world can I get an IP address? Well, here's a quick 1, 2, 3 step way to do. Once you take the PA2 right out of the box, it automatically has a default setting to a static IP address of 192 setting here. Now, most of the people out there have a dynamic, IP address. How do you go ahead and convert that? Well, as I showed you back and forth, on one side there was the volume key. What you can do is just plug in the device on a PoE connection. You allow it to boot up, and once it finishes booting up, you basically press the volume up key for 10 seconds until you hear a beep. And once you hear a beep, you just press it up for 3 more times, and that will convert the static IP address into a dynamic IP address. And within a few seconds, the address will be announced across the speaker that you have hooked into the system so that you can listen to it and put that IP address into your browser. And now you have a web GUI interface that you can now provide firmware upgrades onto this device and begin configuring it. And once you get one device configured, if you have multiple PA2s you want to configure, you could then route back into the FDMS server to be able to download templates so that you can, bypass all of these configuration settings to work your particular setting to deploy your setting. Obviously, if you have any technical support, I would suggest that you would send any technical abilities to support@fanvil.com, Or conversely, I would suggest that you copy me. I'm also resident here in the Pacific Coast. My call back number is area code 925-315-8950. Again, that's 925-315-8950. Or you could send me an email directly at Tommy, TOMMY.LEE@fanvil.com. Okay, and that's really provides my overview for the day. I see a couple of questions that sort of popped up, and what I'd like to do is really set aside some time and really address some questions over the next hour or two. I see some questions, and it says here, do you have a list of third-party cameras that the PA2 supports? Actually, there are lots and lots of third-party cameras. I do know that IP cameras do support it, but we haven't run compatibility tests. But we are sure that when you buy the small camera that's in our kit that I showed, the kit actually comes with a small Ethernet connection so that you can do that. What I would suggest is that if you have a third-party camera that is IP, I would suggest maybe connecting that thing onto it and being able to configure that IP address with your camera and being able to take a look at it. And the good news about this PA2 is that it's what I would call a really high return on investment device, because this is not as expensive as many of the competitive solutions that are out there. So I do know that we've done compatibility testing with our kit, but I don't believe we extended it to third party because there are dozens of different cameras that are out there. How can I stream to a music source over PA2 until I connect the paging? Well, here's how you would stream a music source. On one of the side, there's actually a mic input to the PA2, and what you can do is you could stream the input of the music into this device, and what you want to do is you may want to set the multicast level has 10 different settings for priority, and what you want to do is to set the streaming music to a low priority setting so that any other priority, like if someone were to show up at a gate or press the button, that will override the music in the background, and then that will automatically be able to bypass it and say, oh, guess what? Mary Jane's birthday is in the kitchen, and once that announcement's gone, then it'll go back to playing music. And that's really one way of doing it. So you can have streaming music of coming in and multicasting that throughout all of your speakers, setting that at a low priority, and then bringing in the actual announcement as a much higher priority, and that will overtake the streaming music application. Let me see. I will need the recording. Oh, sure. We will have a recording onto the Fanvil site. In fact, if you go to fanvil.com and look at support and downloads, you will see in one of the tabs video instructions so that you can actually take the video instruction to do that. And if you need any more tips, feel free to give me a call. I just provided you with a contact before. 70 to 100 volt speaker compatible. In terms of the speaker voltages, usually speakers that are that high voltages is typically run by a third-party amp. We actually typically power up to like 30 watts on most configurations. On a PoE connections, it'll ramp it up to 10 watts. And then there's an external power in, which could supplement the PoE that'll boost it from 10 to up to 30. But if you have something higher than 30 watts, what typically happens there in those speakers is that a third-party speaker amplifier would be installed in a wall or in the cabinet somewhere that would provide several hundred watts to either power 5, 10, 12, or even more watts that you can have in the ceiling. And what you can do with the PA2 is use that as a SIP bridge that connects the voice call onto that PA amplifier. Do you have a list of compatible NVRs? Yeah, absolutely. You can contact them or give me a call. It depends on what location you are. I'll be more than happy to be able to guide you to the right. You may already be working. For those who are buying SIP phones out today, I encourage you to possibly go out and ask for them. They may be able to be carrying our phones moving forward. Let me see. I think that is it so far. How can you post? Can you put your contact information here? Yeah, I could put the contact. As I mentioned earlier, you could send a general contact to sales@fanvil.com. I will get a copy of that sales, or you can send it to me directly at tommy.lee, that's TOMMY.LEE @fanvil.com. I think that's the last question. And so I want to thank you very much for your time. And if you have any further questions, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I'll be more than happy to connect with you. And I hope you have a very healthy and safe week, as well as a life moving forward. You take care, and thank you for your time. Bye-bye.